Okay, in this video we're going to discuss midpoint and distance in the coordinate plane. Now this is just a review of what we covered in class for 1-6. Now what midpoint and distance in the coordinate plane is just that we're just dealing with the coordinate plane. It doesn't change anything that we've been doing in class. The only thing that's added is that we have brand new formulas to work with. Now previously I've been just showing you about line segments. I've been working with lines, but now we're trying to put this line on the x and y axis, so something like this. We're just trying to work with where this point is located and where this point is located, and where we can find the midpoint, which is somewhere down here, or determine how long it is. And in order to do that, we're going to have to use brand new formulas that we're going to use. So we're going to use the midpoint formula, which we covered in class, which is just the endpoints and their x and y's just added together. So right here, endpoint right here will be at x1 and y1, and our other endpoint will be here at x2 and y2. Now all we're doing here is that we're just taking both x coordinates of both endpoints and we're taking the average of them. So we add them both together and just divide by 2. Now we do the same thing for y1 and y2, which is just our y coordinates for both of our endpoints here. Now we just take the average of both of those. And so using this, we're used to find the midpoint of the line segment on the coordinate plane. The reason this comes out to being just the x coordinate of the midpoint is that we're just determining how long it is from C on the x-axis to A on the x-axis. And if you see from A to C, it's just like from this straight line. And we're trying to determine where it is at the middle, which is right here for our case. And for y, we're just trying to see whether how high it is up and how far it is down. So somewhere in the average is somewhere in the middle here. And so where you see they both cross over, and that's where our line, that's where the midpoint of our, that's where the coordinates of our midpoint end up being at. Now that was for midpoint formula. Distance, we're just looking for how long it is from point A all the way to point C. Now you can determine which point it is from, which point is your second point, which point is your first point, which point is your second point. I usually like doing that. My first point is always the one on the left, and my second point is always the one on the right. Now here we have d is equal to the square root of x2 minus x1. The whole entire thing is squared, plus y2 minus y1. The whole entire thing is squared. Now this is used to find the length of a line segment on the coordinate plane. So the difference between these two is what? And one we're just looking for the midpoint, and the other one we're just looking for the length of it. So length, distance, midpoint formula, midpoint of the line segment. Okay, so distance, we're just looking for how long it is from this point all the way over here. Okay, now I'll go ahead and explain it with you with a couple examples. Now our first problem. Problem 1, line segment CD with endpoints -1, 3 and D at 3, 5. What are the coordinates of the midpoint? Now, which formula we're going to use? Midpoint. Okay, so then let's go ahead and start using it. So then midpoint, go ahead and use x1 plus x2 divided by 2, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So these are going to be used to look for our midpoint. That m signifies that we're looking for the midpoint of our line segment. Okay, so x1, which will be considered our first point. So let's call this our first point. So that we'll call this x1, y1, and we'll call this x2 and y2. Okay, so then let's go ahead and plug in our numbers. Now our midpoint here is just saying that we're looking for the x coordinates, and here we're looking for the y coordinates. So then what's our first x1? -1. x2, which is 3. So we add them both together. So negative 1 plus 3 divided by 2. And go ahead and plug in the other one for the y's. So we have y1 is 3, y2 is 5. So it'll be 3 plus 5 divided by 2. Now, here, I could just go ahead and show you a way of what it looks like. So, D here is at 1, 2, 3, 3, comma 5. And the other one is going to be at negative 1, positive 3. So this is just a way of actually looking at how it is. So, alright. So, let's go ahead and just start adding them both together. So negative 1 plus 3 is 2 over 2. 3 plus 5 is 8 over 2. Now, are we able to reduce both of these? We should. So our midpoint should come out to be at 1, comma, how many times does 2 fit into 8, which is 4. So our midpoint should be at 1, comma 4, which is 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it should be right here. Okay, so that will be it for this problem right here for CD, for the midpoint of CD. Now let's go ahead and find the length of CD. Okay, now which equation are we going to use? Distance formula. Okay, so distance formula, we're going to go ahead and jot it down. So we have D equals square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And all it is, we're just going to identify which one's our first point and which one's our second point, which we already did over here. So x2 is 5 minus, oh sorry, my mistake. x2 is 3. 3 minus x1, which is negative 1. And that whole entire thing is inside our parentheses here. So our 3 here is right there. Negative 1 is right here. And it's still inside the parentheses. And we got to square that. Plus y2 is 5 minus y1, which is 3. Square that. And so you take the square root of, what's 3 minus negative 1? That minus a negative should be a positive. So it'll be 3 plus 1 squared plus 5 minus 3 should be 2 squared. So it should be here 3 plus 1, which is 4 squared, plus 2 squared should be 4. And then go ahead and take the square root of that. So 4 squared is 16 plus 4. Keep taking the square root. Don't forget the square root, everybody. So we have 16 plus 4, which is 20. So the square root of 20 should be our distance here. Now you can go ahead and break it down if you remember the tree. So right here should be 4 and 5, 2 and 2. Pull it out. So it'll be 2 square root of 5. Okay, if you get down to square root of 20, that should be fine. That's just you still have the correct answer. It's just we got to break it down to this. But if you got this for the most part, then kudos. You understand what we're trying to do here for the distance formula. Now, distance formula is just finding how long it is, how long this line is from C all the way to D. So the difference between midpoint and distance is that one's dealing with length, the other one's dealing for where we're finding the midpoint, and we're just trying to use our endpoints that we already knew from both of our trying to use the endpoints that we already knew, and we're using both of our coordinates to determine where the midpoint is at the very middle. Okay, so that's it for problem 1, and I'll see you in the next video.